The warrior as a shaman. Only the multidisciplined warrior, that techno-shaman, can scale the walls of ignorance and shed light over the prevailing darkness. The warrior spirit must guide this process. From the book The Warrior's Edge by Alexander Grauler and Morris. Martial arts have often been described as a form of meditation, a moving meditation. The purpose of meditation is to alter one's consciousness in order to achieve a variety of goals, from relaxation and healing to extending one's lifespan and developing supernatural abilities. The picture that most often comes to mind when we consider meditation is that of the yogi, the Buddhist, and the Taoist sitting cross-legged in a temple. The key ingredients are silence, stillness, and solitude. Contrast this with the continually moving and sometimes explosive movements of martial arts, and it would appear to be the antithesis of the conditions needed for meditation. From where then did this unique concept, the linking of physical movement with an altered state of consciousness, originate? In the older martial arts traditions of China, Burma, the Philippines, and Malaysia, there are systems of self-defense that are based upon the combat movements of either real or mythical animals. The better-known styles originated in China and include tiger, leopard, lion, crane, eagle, phoenix, snake, dragon, white ape, monkey, and praying mantis, to name a few. Most of the movements of these styles are more complex and vigorous and are thus even further removed from the traditional requirements of silence and stillness. Yet it is in the grand ballet of the animal styles that the connection is closest to the ancient origin of moving meditation. That connection can be seen in the oral traditions. Every style has its own folklore regarding its origins. Often they are like parables that teach moral and philosophical lessons, as well as the style's origins. However, there is also a pattern to many of the tales. The following story is typical of these and contains classic story elements that point to an even older origin. In 15th century China, Wang Lang was a bully who had studied martial arts from a young age. He would strut and intimidate the locals with displays of kung fu, but the older men in the village were unimpressed. "Pah! Who do you think you are?" they would mutter. "Your skills are nothing compared to even a Shaolin novice." Stinging from such rebukes, Wang vowed to find this Shaolin temple and defeat its master. After an arduous journey, Wang reached the temple and challenged the monks to a duel. Initially, the monks ignored him, but day after day Wang issued his challenge, and finally the monks accepted. Expecting to duel with the master, Wang was chagrined to find himself faced with the lowest-ranking monk. Even more humiliating was his quick defeat at the novice's hands. Wang sulked off to the nearby mountains, where he trained for months. After his confidence was restored, Wang returned to Shaolin and defeated the novice monk that had beaten him earlier. However, his next opponent was a senior monk, who flounced him effortlessly. Wang again retreated to the mountains to contemplate his failure. Then one day, while sitting in meditation, Wang was distracted by the sounds coming from some nearby bushes. Investigating the source of the commotion, he discovered a struggle between a praying mantis and a cicada. As he watched, Wang was fascinated by the mantis's martial techniques. He captured the mantis and kept it in a cage built from sticks. He used a straw to poke and attack the insect in order to study its fighting strategy. Wang incorporated the strategies of the mantis into his martial arts and returned to the temple. He defeated every one of the monks sent against him. The abbot finally ordered a stop to the contest, conceding victory to Wang. The abbot was curious about his unique style of fighting and asked Wang how he came about it. Wang told the story of his encounter with the mantis. Having also learned humility from the insect, Wang Lang became a Shaolin monk, and his praying mantis style became famous throughout China. As a parable, this tale illustrates three of the most important strategies of warfare: deception, speed, and surprise. There are also the moral lessons: persevering in the face of failure, learning humility, and the benefits of being in harmony with nature. However, from the perspective of cultural anthropology, such folk tales may contain an ancient memory of an even older tradition, that of the vision quest. Common to shamanism, the vision quest is a ritual whereby a young warrior first undergoes a period of training, after which he sets off alone into the wilderness. He must bear the hardships of isolation while fasting and meditating until he has a vision. The vision usually takes the form of an animal that reveals certain secrets. This animal then becomes the warrior's kindred or guardian spirit and will imbue him with its powers and attributes. For example, if the visionary animal was a fox, the warrior would take on the qualities of cunning. An eagle would bestow far sight, a bear strength, and so on. Compare the elements of the vision quest to the story of Wang Lang, his training and initial defeat, his departure into the wilderness to contemplate his failure, the encounter with the mantis who reveals secrets of strategy and tactics, and finally, Wang's triumphant return, possessed with the powers of the mantis, as well as a newfound humility. The folklore surrounding Tai Chi's origins also reflect the same pattern. The legendary founder of Tai Chi is said to have been a mountain hermit by the name of Chang Song Feng, who lived during the Yuan dynasty, 1279 to 1368. He wandered throughout the mountains and learned secret Taoist breathing techniques that made him nearly immortal. Legend has him living well past 200. In addition, he learned Shaolin temple fighting from other wandering monks. One day, while living in the Wudang Mountains, Chang heard a hawk screeching and went to see what was happening. What he discovered was a hawk attacking and doing battle with a snake. Although the hawk was stronger, faster, and had superior weapons in the forms of a beak and talons, the snake was successful in driving off the hawk. The snake's soft and circular movements evaded the hawk's attacks. Chang realized that by adopting the gentle and yielding aspects of the snake's defense, the soft could neutralize the hard, the weak defeat the strong, and slow overcome fast. And thus Tai Chi was born. These folk tales share a common plot theme with the vision quest. Each includes a challenge or test, followed by isolation and hardship, then a revelation in the form of a vision of a wild animal that acts as a catalyst for the transformation of body and mind. Finally, each takes on the attributes of the visionary animal. According to his book, Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, Mircea Eliade recounts that a shaman must, from time to time, perform a ritual known as the spirit dance. Well known among Native Americans, accounts of this practice also date back 4,000 years in Chinese records. During the spirit dance, the shaman moves in imitation of his animal spirit to call on its powers. It is said that the animal spirit actually takes possession of the shaman's body and gives the shaman superhuman strength. This principle is also mirrored in the martial arts. Performing the movements of Tai Chi is said to generate a spiritual energy, Qi. Like the shaman's infusion from his animal spirit, Qi also bestows superhuman strength. Could it be that performing the stylized movements of a martial arts form is based on the ancient shamanic practice of dancing the spirit? If so, this could mean that the connection between martial arts and shamanism was closer and much older than we thought. While there are similarities between the origins of martial arts systems and the shamanic tradition of the vision quest, it does not imply that practicing Tai Chi is a form of spirit possession. What it does suggest is that some of China's most ancient traditions may be the source, inspiration, or template from which the more refined disciplines, such as martial arts, evolved. If many of the martial arts origin myths parallel shamanic practices, does the Kung Fu master then resemble or perform the functions of a shaman? In his book, Iliad distinguishes the shaman from other types of religious and magical practitioners primarily on the basis of religious functions and techniques. Quote, he is believed to cure like all doctors and to perform miracles of the fakir like all magicians, whether primitive or modern. But beyond this, he is a psychopomp, and he may also be priest, mystic, and poet. End quote. In comparing the function of a shaman to that of the Kung Fu masters, I'm using what could be called the classical idea of a Kung Fu master. Modern masters may or may not embody some or all of the qualities of the classical model, depending on the individual. Quote, he is believed to cure like all doctors. End quote. In the classical model, a Kung Fu master was also noted for his healing skills. Each was said to inherit from his teacher a healing method whose techniques varied from master to master, but which were drawn from the fields of acupuncture, herbalism, massage, physiotherapy, and the use of the healing properties of qi. A well-known modern example of the martial arts master as healer archetype can be found in one of China's most famous Kung Fu masters. Wang Fei Hong, 1847 to 1924, was a martial artist, a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, and revolutionary. He became a Chinese folk hero and the subject of numerous television series and films. As a healer and medical doctor, Wang practiced and taught acupuncture and other forms of traditional Chinese medicine at his private medical clinic, where he was known for his compassion and policy of treating any patient regardless of ability to pay. Wang passed down his knowledge of martial arts and healing to many students, such as Lam Sai Wing, who moved to Hong Kong and in turn passed it on to many more, including my own teacher, Chan Hong Chung. Like his teachers before him, Master Chan worked primarily as a healer, practicing a peculiar branch of Chinese medicine known as bone setting. Between patients, he taught martial arts to thousands of students from all over the world, breaking the long-held admonition against teaching non-Chinese. That a martial arts teacher is also a healer is a common expectation among Chinese and other South Asian cultures. Contrast this with the Western culture, where no one, for example, would expect a physician to also be a professional boxer, or vice versa. Thus, it is shown that the Kung Fu masters in the past and continuing in the present often fulfill the role of healer. Quote, and to perform miracles of the fakir like all magicians, whether primitive or modern." End quote. In Taiwan, every Chinese New Year, Kung Fu master Zha Jianru would put on a public performance in the small park in front of his clinic. He and his extended martial arts family, consisting of big brothers, kung fu uncles, and honored grandfathers, would gather a crowd by banging on the traditional kung fu school drums and setting off fireworks. When a large enough crowd had gathered, Master Tsai would step out and perform his feats of kung fu prowess. He would cause wine bottles to explode with a slap of his palm. He could bend 3 spears with their blades pressed against his throat. He would have burly men break 100-pound cement blocks with sledgehammers that were placed on his chest while he lay on a bed of nails. These and a dozen other stunts were intended to demonstrate that the kung fu teacher had superhuman powers of invincibility and strength. They were, in effect, miracles. But, like similar feats performed by fakirs, magicians, and shamans, most were merely tricks. Although rare today, in earlier times it was quite common for martial arts schools to put on such performances as a way of promoting their school and medical clinic, and as a public service, since they also performed the lion dance, that is believed to cleanse the village or neighborhood of evil spirits. Which brings us to the next role played by the shaman. Quote, "But beyond this, he is a psychopomp." End quote. A psychopomp is a spirit guide who helps to lead departed souls beyond the pitfalls of the netherworld to the safety of paradise. To accomplish this, the shaman must alter his consciousness and enter into a trance state. This is often done by a ritual known as dancing the spirit. By dancing and breathing rhythmically, the shaman theoretically allows his body to become possessed by his kindred or animal spirit. With the aid of his animal spirit, the shaman is able to journey into the netherworld and chase away the evil spirits that work to waylay the recently departed soul's journey to the light. While the Kung Fu master claims no such responsibility, they do, however, share a common practice, chasing away evil spirits while dancing the spirit. In the world of Chinese Kung Fu, this is the lion dance. Lion dancing has traditionally been the exclusive domain of Kung Fu schools, and it is performed at special occasions such as New Year, birthdays, and new ventures. Like the shaman's dance, the purpose of the lion dance is to scare away evil spirits. The fact that the lion dance is required at every important occasion and that only Kung Fu practitioners can perform the dance seems to point to the traditional shaman's role of psychopomp. Finally, are Kung Fu masters like, quote, priests, mystics, and poets? The answer is obvious to any student of martial arts history. The Shaolin school was founded by Buddhist monks. Most, if not all their masters, were Buddhist monks. The founders of the internal schools were Taoist mystics. Most, if not all their masters, were also Taoist mystics. The practitioners of both schools of martial arts are thus expected to emulate the founders of their systems by having some knowledge of the mystic elements they are based on. While not every Kung Fu master knows or practices the mystical or meditative techniques, each will nevertheless testify to the art's mystic origins. Finally, Kung Fu masters were expected, according to Confucius, to be gentlemen, and as such were required in classical times to know and practice the art of poetry. As we have seen, the way of the warrior has much in common with the way of the shaman, and understanding the ways of the shaman can no doubt aid in the development of your own warrior path. It can be argued that every culture, requires someone to fulfill the roles of shaman in order to complete that society's psychodynamic. In ancient China, the role of the shaman was fulfilled by the classical kung fu master.